Good afternoon, everyone. We're almost coming close to the end of today's session. Few more, interesting things to happen. And to shed light on the new Bharat, I have with me two amazing gentlemen here. But before we get into their intros and what they've done, a very quick activity. And to show you a glimpse of what this new Bharat is, I would like you all to pull out your smartphones and count the number of apps that you've installed on your phone. So if you want to play a little bit smart, then you can go to, if you have an iPhone, then you can go to settings and general and about and check the number of apps there. Otherwise, you can do the simple thing of actually counting the number of columns and then multiply it by the rows. Okay, so I counted the number of apps that I have. If you have more than 20 apps installed on your phone, please raise your hands. I expect the entire room's hands to be up at this point right now. More than 50 installed apps, then keep your hands up. More than 100 installed apps, keep your hands up. More than 130 apps. So, what is the highest number in the room? Can anybody say? People who have their hands up, because there is a nice swag waiting for somebody who has the highest number of apps installed on their phone.
So 164.
You don't get anything. 164. Okay, Gulshan.
232.
Whoa.
Gulshan, I want to see your phone. I want to see your phone, Gulshan.
So I guess the winner for this quick activity is Gulshan, and maybe we can give one of the swags, the jacket, to Gulshan. And if you kept your hand up, we have some small giveaways for you as well. Above 130, if you had your hand up, just let us know and somebody around will give you one of our nice swags. But the point is, what you saw here is the tiny glimpse of this new Bharat that is being built, and people here in this room, they're building this new Bharat. Exactly 5 years ago, this number was less than 1/4. So on an average, Indians had 25 apps installed. Today, the average is a little bit closer to 80. So it is because of this room that, people are installing so many apps. And by the way, you will be surprised, Tier 2 cities actually consume 30% more data than Tier 1. So that's the stat that left me a little bit shocked. And I think that's a good premise for us to jump into our session today. I have with me two amazing gentlemen with wealth of experience across industries, online, retail, e-commerce, OTT, fintech, whatnot. So maybe a quick round of intros. Arpan, let's start with you.
Thanks, Aditya. Thank you, Sanjay and the team for inviting me here. Glad to meet some of my old friends as well. I'm glad that you're not having this in Maldives, because the justification to my wife would have been difficult today otherwise. Goa is still better. In the industry for roughly 15 years, have worked across multiple functions as well as businesses, starting from real estate to automobile, to FMCG, to fashion, currently in fashion, e-commerce. And glad to be a part of this and hoping to learn from each one of you.
Thanks, Arpan. Sid.
Hi, good to be here. I am currently with Paytm. I head their marketing and user monetization business. Before that, I worked as the chief business officer for Ola for a little bit. And before that, for a very long time, Hotstar, as the business head for S-Ward, A-Ward, the CMO all through. Was in the US before that, working with Amazon, but came back to India to start Hotstar, along with a couple of other people at that point. So before Hotstar, Amazon, like I said, heading a couple of categories for them. And before that with Reckitt, I used to, again in the US, used to lead Dettol for Reckitt in the US for some amount of time. So I think I have an experience beyond that also, but that gives away my age, so I'll stop here.
I think people would have guessed by now your age, given the amount of experience the two of you have, and I think there is no industry that these two haven't touched. So I'm very excited for this chat. Arpan, let's begin with you. New Bharat. There are so many things that are happening. India is like a typical pyramid structure with middle class booming constantly. Tier 2, 3 cities are coming up constantly. What are you seeing on the retail side? What is this new Bharat like? Can you paint a picture for us a little bit?
I think the definition of New Bharat has changed, and I've been seeing it change over the years. It depends a lot on the category. It depends a lot on the kind of picture you want to paint to the investors as well at times. At retail, I personally believe most of the e-commerce brands, right, which have been in the play for the last 2 decades, they were primarily built for the tier 1 and metros, right? If you think of it, most of them are built for this tier 1 and metros, the top 8 cities, the top 15 cities at max. Now, having said that, Ajio's 50% of business also comes from these cities. But the growth currently is coming from tier 2 and 3 cities. And we have seen the shift in momentum as well as in the ecosystem in the last 2 to 3 years, primarily in fashion, thanks to the likes of the Zudios and the Mishos, the way they have grown. I'll talk pertaining to Ajio, given that Ajio, the mode for Ajio, which we call internally, is exclusive brands and international brands, thanks to the Reliance ecosystem. If you look at the category codes, right, in fashion, folks tend to buy things which are more aspirational in nature. And that's where the role of international brands, luxury brands come in. And that's what we are pushing as a brand outside the cities as well, right? Secondly, westernization. If you look at New Bharat, the amount of data they consume, as you mentioned, be it entertainment or the reels and otherwise. So the westernization of tier 2, tier 3 is much faster than tier 1 now, currently, because of which they tend to go out more, thanks to Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman recently, where she has increased their disposable income as well by reducing taxes. So we hope to see more monies coming into the market, where the spends will be higher, specifically disposable spends on fashion, right? So we have seen growth in tier 3 markets. We hope to see more growth in market in the near future. Few things, I think, in terms of the road ahead, few things we have done to cater to these customers. Number one, EMI, right? Wherein even if they don't have the cash at that moment in time to buy something premium, say be at a Nike Air Jordan. Someone sitting in Bilaspur might aspire to have a Nike Air Jordan. We are giving them EMIs. We are giving them first user offers where they want to move from offline to online. Given that offline players can't, fashion is very complicated as a category, right? You have different SKUs, different styles, and you have to give them the repertoire and the potpourri of choices to choose from, right? And that's where an e-commerce brand comes into play vis-a-vis an offline player. So we're giving them the choices across brands from the world. We're giving them the right to switch from offline to online with first user offers with EMIs. We have also started something called a 999 store. There's some folks who tend to move to a 999 store or buy things below 999 or below 1,000 and then move up. And we have seen this trend. A lot of folks from roughly 67% from tier 2 and tier 3, their first purchase is in the range of $350 average. And within the first 1 year, we see their ASP moving up to around $650 to $700. So these are the few things we have done to cater to this audience.
Fantastic. And Arpan, when I was talking to you and also reading a little bit, a stat that I read is out of 100 people who are coming online, like the newly online segment, 60 are actually from tier 2, 3 cities. Only 40 are from the tier 1. So tier 2, 3 actually starts to play a good role in our strategies.
And it also makes a lot of sense for online brands. Sorry, just add. It tends to make a lot of sense for online fashion brands primarily because the density of folks who are willing to pay price for a premium brand specifically, right? Where the unit economics makes sense because the price to send the product to them for a premium versus non-premium brand is almost the same. So it makes a lot of sense for premium brands to cater to this because the density is low in tier 2, 3 cities or folks are willing to pay. So online commerce makes a lot of sense.
Awesome. Sid, with the OTT experience that you have, I feel like you've seen the entire India. Whosoever is online has seen you and you've seen them. What do you have to talk about this new Bharat?
It's a very it's an interesting question because when we started Hotstar, it was mostly an AVOD service, and at one point we were the most consumed, the service on which the most data was spent after YouTube, essentially. So back in 2018 only, it was a gradual, 2016, 17, maybe the metros and tier ones were bigger in data consumption. But 2018 onwards, data consumption was more than 50% from the smaller towns and cities of India, and not so much, the metros and tier ones became a minority at that point. And it's continued to grow, and it's been in that vein also, going forward. What is interesting is that the bigger towns, the metros, tier ones, their people lives are busier, so your time is at a premium. So there, what you're fighting for is time share of the people, not so much the data share, because they're not sensitive that much to data and pricing, etc. But when you go down, people are running their data in Bharat, what we call Bharat. People are running their data at a daily level. So they have prepaid packs basically, and every day they get a certain amount of data, 1.5 or 2 GB or whatever. And everybody there has a mental model in their head. I can see 4 videos, I can chat with my friend for 1 hour, I can see 10 reels, and so on and so forth. So they have a mental model and they go through the day on that mental model, and they time it so that by the end of the day they've used up their 1.5 GB or whatever. So there's no, time is not at so much of a premium there. So there you're fighting for data share more than time share of the consumers, right? But you switch categories and you go to mobility, right? And mobility has still not gained any traction in Bharat. And the interesting thing is shared mobility or shared economy or whatever you want to call it, it functions the other way. In Bharat, everybody has their own commute, has their motorcycle or scooter or cycle to get it to where they want to be. There is so far, there is not much, even two-wheelers haven't penetrated. Two-wheeler mobility, two-wheeler taxis haven't penetrated even there. So it's interesting because there the play has remained more metros and tier ones. And it tends to be, even in metros and tier ones, it tends to be a supply constrained category. There's more demand, there's untapped demand. If you had better supply, you could get more demand. But we've not been able to do that in metros and tier ones also to a certain extent, right? So there maybe the Bharat story is not as relevant. Now fintechs, again, when you look at it, another different insight that Bharat was always relevant, banks were always trying to go down, and there was a typical funnel of a person opening a bank account, then going to a fixed deposit, then going to a mutual fund, then going to trading. And what has happened is that in the middle of that has come UPI, right? Which has now become, so the funnel has changed from a Bharat perspective. It's become opening a bank account, UPI, then maybe a fixed deposit, and then maybe mutual fund, etc., etc. So UPI is a kind of a inclusiveness measure for Bharat, right? Whereas maybe even Hotstar is at a certain, if you take it or OTT is at a certain level, but mobility hasn't tended to be. So I think it depends on every app, it depends on the category, but the important thing is you've got to understand the consumer's life, and then you've got to see if you play a role in it or not. Bharat may be for everybody, may not be for everybody, so.
That's interesting. Sounds almost like, every industry has their own thing to do, their own place in this new Bharat that is being built. And interesting insight on the data piece, everybody has that 1.5, 2 GB of data per day, and how that gets used and how your app managed to get a share of that 1.5 GB in that day decides whether you make into that person's phone or not. Interesting things. Thanks, Sid. Arpan, you already talked about a little bit about, how do you capture the different segments. And I feel like earlier, India, Bharat, it was a little bit simple. It was, the urban affluent and it was the rural poor. But now it's very broad. There is top tier, mid tier, low tier. You talked about, first purchase being 350 rupees. Any other fresh ideas on how do you break into tier 2, 3 and get more people to shop and things like that?
Yeah, I think for e-commerce brand, most importantly, it's the platform and the experience and the personalization do on the platform. So keeping that in mind, we have come up with multiple stores. So if anyone has recently gone to Ajio or can check it right now as well, we exactly follow the pyramid structure, starting with Ajio Lux, right at the top, wherein the ASPs will be upwards of 10,000 bucks. Then we have something called Bridge to Luxury, which will host brands like Lacoste and otherwise. So that's slightly lower. Then you have another store. So the Bridge to Luxury, when you go to the app, that'll be the premium 2.2 basis their previous purchases, right? So we move everyone to Ajio Classic or 1.2, we call it internally. And then based on the next 3 purchase events of theirs, at whatever ASP they are buying or the frequency they are buying, we move them up to that level. Then we have something called Ajiogram, which is targeted more towards the Gen Z audience. So the look and feel, the dark theme store, the look and feel is very different, more of social commerce. And then we have the 999 store I was talking about, right? Wherein you get the person the first time after they install the app from other cities, say tier 2 and tier beyond. You get them to that store. Again, basis their behavior, you decide to move them to Ajio Classic, which is more dependent on the discounts. It's more discount oriented, 999 is price oriented, and Ajio Premium is more brands oriented. So it's kind of a filter. We are kind of taking away the first step from the user of filtering, giving them that personalized experience. But having said that, right, I am a user as well, and when we look at data, someone who has bought a Bridge to Luxury has also bought something from 999 store, right? So I personally basis my previous years in, say, Britannia, when things used to be more demographic and psychographic in nature, I don't even believe in psychographic. I think it's more behavioral these days, because same person can go to different store for different needs. So we need to give them that option. So if you draw parallel with offline, if you're in Bangalore, if you have VR versus the Phoenix Market City, VR is more premium. You give the option to the user to choose from, right? That day, do you want to buy something for yourself for an office party vis-a-vis something to wear at home? So that's how we are going about it.
By the way, it's a different story that VR in Bangalore is almost on the verge of shutting down. They wanted to make it a black box luxury experience. I don't know what happened, but it sounds like personalization almost is the key, building these different stores. And I'm actually waiting for a day when we open up the app and there will be some magical AI that'll personalize the app according to exactly the tastes and personality that I have and the kind of buying power that I have. And I don't think it's very far ahead. It's coming. So I feel like you touched upon a great point there. Sid, bringing you into the conversation a little bit, India, at least when I explain it to people from outside, sometimes to our leaders who are not based here, I tell them that, and Sanjay mentioned this earlier, that we are 36 different countries bundled into one blue cricket color. And the culture is changing, language is changing almost every 100, 200 kilometers away. And localization it plays an important role in bringing inclusivity into this new Bharat. And what is this localization? Is this only translate the app that you have into multiple languages, or is it beyond? And how deep do you go into this?
I hate that. The translation, localization being a translation of the app, I personally don't subscribe. I mean, it has a role for sure, but the way I think it means, firstly, I think it means much more. It's not localization in a person's language. It should be localization to a person's environment rather than language, right? And their habitat in a sense. And so also the other thing is that I've seen it in multiple different businesses that I've been in. Over time, users, when they come in and they use your app, in India, everybody gets used to where they have to go, what they have to press, where they have to click. changing that word from English to Tamil or Telugu is making no difference. I mean, hoping you're an app which has visual cues and which most apps do. People know their journey on the app. People know what they've got to, where they need to press and click and all that. And we've done it. We've changed language multiple times, but it's not shown any appreciable big difference, right? I think the bigger aspect to consider is, can you micro segment your audience and your users on the app to basically reflect their propensity, their tendency to buy, their tendency to engage. So what I mean is that generally we want to monetize everything, right? So we throw everything up on the homepage for the user, right? So we don't differentiate, we just want to monetize. Now, question is, people are at different stages of their journey, right? You can bring somebody in, can you understand what is their profile and localize it to the extent where if I'm a person who has high RFM for you or say frequency and monetary value for you and you understand that, then you can throw things up on the app for me. But maybe I'm a new user, let's say, not stereotyping, but let's just say, for example, I'm a user from Bharat who's just got into your app. The best way is not to throw things at me, everything at me, right? So maybe for them, you have the core function that they need the app for, and maybe just something else. Or maybe not even that, just the core function. And over time, as they graduate into using you more and more, you keep exposing more and more to them till you get to that experience, which is where the highest monetized user is for you, right? And it can be different for different regions. For example, generally, again, I've seen across all the apps, whenever we've done consumer insights, people in South India prefer a simpler, clutter-free interface. People in North India don't care so much about it, right? So maybe you can take those kind of learnings, right? Why is there a Diwali sale only? Why is that the big occasion, right? It can be localized to some region, and then you could have multiple spikes through the year, which kind of talk about what's big in that region, right? So I think all of these factors essentially drive, that for me is localization, right? A personalization of the app, which is more relevant to the person's journey, where he is in his life, where he is in usage of your app, which is again driven by where he's living, what he's doing, where he comes from, what are his cultural, upbringing and nuances. So I think that for me is more localization.
You said it beautifully, and it's like personalization, I don't know, 2.0, 3.0, 5.0 that we need to build in our apps to really almost customize the different pages and the experience of that user to cater to them in the best manner. And I think OTT companies have done it beautifully. They, on one side tie up with micro influencers, on the other side show the relevant content in the relevant language with the relevant thumbnails and descriptions. That I think is like the localization to another level, and we got to see that in many more apps and industries. I'll shift gears a little bit and talk about Reliance Group. Reliance Group has played a key role in building this Bharat. Pretty much the late entrant into every category, crowded categories, and then come in and disrupt the business, accelerate quickly and disrupt the business. That's the playbook that at least we get to see from outside. Arpan, because we have the pleasure of you sitting here, tell us what is the insider view that you have on this Reliance strategy?
Reliance is too big for having an insider view, to be honest. I mean, almost half of us will be ex-Reliance. I think now Siddharth is kind of ex-Reliance as well, thanks to Hotstar.
That's a good way to include the entire room.
That way every citizen will have worked for Reliance at some point.
Yeah, I think Reliance is, whichever industry, right, or category Reliance enters into, and that's my perspective, is they look for a certain moat. If I look at online e-commerce, not many players have survived in the last 2 decades in online fashion e-commerce. Touchwood, Ajio has, doing well, and has a decent market share as well. Primarily because in this category, it's very important to have exclusive brands, right? Brands which will drive footfall to the app, and stickiness increases because of that, because you have a specific reason to go to the app. Or else it becomes a fight of discounts, which is a never winning war for anyone, at least for the sellers. Customers, they're the ones winning from it. So in our case, it's exclusivity primarily, which kind of draws folks to us. If you look at Jio, it was pricing, data at that point in time, right? That disrupted the market. If you look at Jio Hotstar, it's cricket audience coming to the platform, right? If you look at FMCG, with what Reliance is doing with FMCG primarily, contrary to my experience of the last decade, where everyone is moving towards premiumization, be it in Britannia, we are pushing for premium product because there is demand for it, or Lodha, we are pushing for more premium real estate, or Wonder Chef, I had a small stint there as well, premium cookware. In this case, Reliance is disrupting the market against through value, right? Be it the price point of Campa versus the incumbents in the market. So I would say it depends very much on the category, and you have to understand the category really well, understand the drivers and barriers of the category, what really is important for the user. So each category has its buying hierarchy, right? Some starts with, within the category, they are buying hierarchy as well. You have to find a scalable model within that. Some folks start with price, some start with brand, followed by price, visa, etc., etc. So I think it's important to have that moat in the category to disrupt the market.
If I were to distill what Arpan said, I think deep understanding of the customer and the category clubbed together, and then the outcome is your product, the offering with the right pricing. That is what you guys are trying to make the moat out of. Again, switching gears, Sanjay in the morning in his presentation said data is the new oil. I've heard that quote for now 20 years, I think. Boring quote, sorry Sanjay. But from your lens, what is the role that data plays in your marketing? Any specific examples that you can share in how marketers sitting in this room can use data to do amazing things?
Sure. So I think data plays a role in everything. It's played a role since ages. Even AI is driven by data for that matter, so it's still playing a role. But I think what was interesting for me is how everybody can targeting based on data. It's something that everybody can do. But I think what is important is what do you learn and what do you implement back, and how do you use data for that, right? So one thing that was interesting for me was, I'll take an example is, and these are feedback loops basically that work to automate and optimize your marketing and your campaigns. We were running this is during one of the IPLs of 7, 8 years ago, 2017 or 18. We were running a real-time marketing campaign on the cricket matches, where whatever was happening in the cricket match, we were taking the live feed, making creatives based on that live feed, based on some creative rules-based engine. So depending on the score, depending on the state of the match, it was live, taking it from the match and putting it out in our performance marketing campaigns, right? And so when we had these segments and we had these campaigns going out to segments like an exciting time in the match, somebody getting close to a 50, etc., etc. What we found is that surprisingly there was these campaigns, there was an ad set which had like an exciting time in a match, and then there was another ad group there which was about Kohli or Dhoni walking in at their prime. Today maybe not, it wouldn't work, but at their prime, right? And we started seeing a segment audience that actually started responding better to Dhoni and Kohli walking into bat when nothing is happening, they're just walking in. And the segments against them were basically those who were seeing like slog overs, last 5 overs, like 10 runs to get, etc. So some audience segment started responding better to these creatives versus saying a slog over or a chase creative or something like that, or somebody close to 100. And so we started understanding what it is, and essentially what you arrive at through that data is that there's an audience which is of hero worshippers, right? Which is essentially people who are lightly connected to cricket. They are not hardcore cricket watchers, because a hardcore cricket watcher will watch everything. Dhoni walking to bat, but more so the slog overs, right? So these are basically hero watchers, and I don't want to assume which gender it is or it is not, but they were basically excited to watch Dhoni and Kohli walk into bat more than the slog overs. So we took that data and we kind of started improving or optimizing our audience segments on the back of that, so that we could run this campaign to increasingly finer and better audience segments. And we could also use that segmentation to create a lookalike for hero worshippers, right? And build more hero worshipping campaigns to basically bring in people who are light on cricket, get them involved in the category, and then they graduate to becoming core cricket viewers, right? So that's an example of how we used data that was coming back from a campaign to fine-tune our segments, find lookalike segments, and increase the category for cricket, right? So
very, very cool. And in I think today's day and age, this probably doing this back then would have been tough. In today's day and age, I think this process has become a lot easier with AI and image processing. You can actually analyze creatives, feed them back into your campaigns, replicate more of that easily. So very cool. Arpan, last question. We are at the end of this discussion. A big thing happened world over was iOS bringing in their privacy changes, and we had absolutely no impact. Bharat was chilling and drinking their chai very, very nicely. And now privacy sandbox is coming, and I definitely expect this Bharat to get impacted. As a marketer, what do you think is going to be the impact, and how do we prepare for this impact?
I think it's a great time to plug in AppsFlyer.
Thank you.
I think Stoke It network primarily helps with measurement for Apple. It also has some banes as well, primarily with the postbacks getting delayed or the re-engagement not getting attributed, which kind of leads to not real ROI or LTA in the long run. So we have been using AppsFlyer for the same, right? And thanks, Sanjay. We have been using AppsFlyer for the same to enrich the data and to enable the data better. Similarly for Privacy Sandbox, though Privacy Sandbox a lot is changing of late. What I initially thought of is, or heard was, third-party cookie will be deprecated, but that is not the case if you ask me. When we, in the recent exchanges, Google, we realized that they'll be having something like ATT, app tracking transparency, which will help the user plug in or opt for third-party cookies as well. The user can do it, right? But having said that, our primary focus is zero and first-party data in the long run, create lookalikes for that, and push that through CDP into the markets so that we can reach out to users who are more likely to convert. Because in the last couple of years, a lot has changed post-COVID. Those bloated valuations, the EBITDAs and stuff are no longer the real truth. People have realized that it's all about showing them the numbers right here, right now, because of which ROAS plays a very, very, very important role. So these are few things we are doing to improve the overall efficiency of campaigns and improve ROAS.
Can I also plug for Sanjay? I also want to do my bit.
You guys are friends for ages now, so I can't stop you, Sid, even if I wanted to.
I'm going to do a data back plug for Sanjay. But no, with Scan coming in, I think many constraints, right? Delayed attributions, attribution windows getting shorter, limit of campaigns per app. I think, but aggregated data instead of user level data. But I think the one thing that I worry about more is in-app event data. I think even that's not going to be passed back, etc. And so I think it's really critical. And at one point people may have felt that I can do without a mobile attribution platform, but I think that those days are gone. And I think trying to do it yourself is a little foolhardy given how this environment changes. And there are experts in it like AppsFlyer who can deal with that complexity for you. And so I think working with mobile attribution, consolidating campaigns where you're not getting enough events to reach the privacy threshold, right? I think that's a good idea if your campaigns are not enough or not delivering enough metrics for you. Predictive analytics in order to get that the initial results quickly and then predict the performance of your campaign and base your campaign on that. And I think importantly, mapping your conversion events, your in-app conversion events into high priority, low priority, whatever they may be, building that kind of structure for attribution and pushing AppsFlyer to work with you to implement all those events, or recategorize them, right? I think that is kind of the way forward in order to keep your marketing and your campaigns performing, to its optimum. And I think even beyond that, we have data clean rooms now where we consolidate first-party data, right? And we anonymize it, etc. But I think you've got to move from there into platforms where you don't only have data clean rooms, but you also have segmentation, audience segmentation that happens on data clean rooms, where you also have campaigns that can run from data clean rooms and feedback into data clean rooms. I'm talking AI now. Feedback into the data clean rooms to live optimize your audiences as your campaigns run. And so I think all of these things.
No, you're fundamentally, right. The attribution that we know today, the marketing, the way we run things today is going to change significantly over the next 2 to 5 years. And I think the key word here is experimentation, the ability to quickly adapt and then bring in new experiments, and the agility to innovate with these changes that are happening. So that brings us to the closure of this session. Sid, Arpan, thank you so much for your insights. I feel like the deep understanding that you have about your verticals, hopefully some of us will take away a few insights, and we're around if you want to catch up and discuss more. Thank you.